going back to just choosing a framework, again, focus on the data and what is the data you're handling on behalf of your customers, as well as yourself, right? And so, for example, you can almost always point to certain types of data that a framework can be related to. So PHI for HIPAA, right? CUI for CMMC, right? SOC 2 is more oriented about services and protecting that service that you're providing, right? And providing some confidence with that service, and so on and so forth. So typically, I always tell folks that, unfortunately, most of these regulatory requirements and frameworks are super high level and subjective, right? And then you end up with this constant analysis paralysis of there's 1,000 ways to skin that cat for each and everything, right? And so I tell folks, well, I think the most important piece, which to me needs to be the most the hardest upfront work that you have to do is scoping, right? And so we always try to educate the strategy of scoping from our perspective, which is basically identify the data. Let's not get into the analysis paralysis of specifics on that data. We can categorize it into something generalized, like, let's say, claims audit data for HIPAA, right? And so you could describe that and describe it in such a way that you can either spot it if you come across it, or you could touch it, or you could smell it, or you could feel it, right? Just try to describe it just enough. Once you have that, then understand the people, technology, and facilities, right? And I call those assets, right? People, technology, facilities that may be either storing, processing, or transmitting that data. And that's where you then look at your inventory of assets, right? Your people, your cloud services, your servers, your client computers, your endpoints, et cetera, and start drawing relationships with those data types you've identified. And that should give you a clear picture to say, okay, this is a technical control. I need to apply it to every endpoint, every computing device, BitLocker encryption, for example, right? That way you can quantify it easier, right? It's no longer this nebulous data at rest encryption. What am I doing, right? It's not a pass fail. It's 50 of my 100 laptops have BitLocker enabled, so I'm 50% of the way there, right? And you could kind of take the same analogy with other things like training, right? You could say how many of the people in scope have completed their training, right? And so on and so forth. So I'm a big fan of putting a lot of emphasis of scoping up front and center.